Okay, beta, let's start. Let's look into the first question that was asked. I'm starting all the way from paper at 2007 and we will go till all papers of 2020, 23, etc. So let me start by talking about your paper 2007 and the question says, what is policy ineffective proposition? Explain with the help of Lucas model. So what should be the answer in this case? What should you be writing? Now, if the question is about policy ineffectiveness proposition, you have to go ahead and you should be mentioning about what is the Lucas model all about. तो इसमें क्या क्या लिखोगे? पहले आप बताओगे कि पॉलिसी इनइफेक्टिव प्रोपोजिशन क्या कहती है. व्हाट डज इट से बेटा? इट सेज दैट योर पॉलिसी इज इनइफेक्टिव. कब इनइफेक्टिव होती है? when the policy can be predicted. So if your policy can be predicted, the policy will be ineffective. It says that only unpredicted changes can bring some changes in the economy. है ना? तो पहले you will go ahead, this will be available on your portal. This is approximately 60 page documents, I think, sorry, 80 pages का document है ये सिर्फ expectation theories के past years cover करता है. This is available on the portal of you guys, but I'm just trying to discuss this today. ठीक है बेटा? So policy ineffectiveness proposition को पहले you will explain. That policy ineffectiveness proposition says that only predictable part is will have no effect on output. ये वाला आपने पूरा समझा दिया कि ये होता क्या है. Then post that you will talk about the Lucas model. So if you go in your books, you will see that there is a Lucas model given in which they have given you the equation of aggregate demand, aggregate supply according to Lucas, and they have given you a money policy equation. ऐसा कुछ दिया हुआ है, alpha yt minus 1 plus et. ये वाला जो मॉडल पूरा दिया हुआ है ना, you have to go ahead and write this model in this case. So you have to completely explain what this model means. When you will do all of that, when you will write about this model, पूरा मॉडल एक्सप्लेन करना होगा आपको. एंड इन दिस केस यू हैव टू गो अहेड एंड यू हैव टू राइट अबाउट व्हाट पॉलिसी इनइफेक्टिवनेस प्रोपोजिशन सेज. अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स इन एग्जाम बेटा दिस कैन कम एज अ बिग क्वेश्चन, मतलब हाईएस्ट मार्क्स का क्वेश्चन आता है ये वाला. So in this, it is very important that you understand the equations well. In equations को अच्छे से समझ के in equations को लिखा जाए. It is very, very important that you do that. Huh? So how will you go ahead and do this? You will define the policy ineffectiveness proposition and then you will start defining this model. And इस model से related जितना भी book में दिया हुआ है, you have to go ahead and write everything about the model. और एंड में यू हैव टू गो अहेड एंड गिव अ कंक्लूजन. तो पॉलिसी इनइफेक्टिवनेस प्रोपोजिशन में क्या कंक्लूजन आता है? सो इफ यू रिमेंबर, इस मॉडल का कंक्लूजन ये है दैट योर प्राइस शुड ओनली हैव एन अनप्रिडिक्टेड कंपोनेंट इन इट, है ना? तो जब हम इन इक्वेशंस को सॉल्व करते हैं, इन इक्वेशंस को सॉल्व करने के बाद वी गेट दिस बेटा. एंड दिस टेल्स मी दैट द डिफरेंस in actual price and predicted price is due to the error. और हम rational expectation में error कब करते हैं? We make an error whenever we have something unanticipated. So this model tells us that only unanticipated changes can cause the price and can cause a difference between actual price and expected price. और उन unanticipated changes की वजह से ही you can have difference between actual output and potential output. ये conclusion देना is very, very important. If you don't write this conclusion in exam, you will never get full marks. Believe me. I myself have taught in Delhi University. All of you would know that I was a faculty and I used to go for paper checking. So I know exactly what fetches marks. I know कि कहाँ पर हमें marks देने हैं और कहाँ नहीं देने हैं बेटा. So on that basis only I am telling you that if you don't write this conclusion, Conclusion, you will not get marks, full marks in this question. So in this question, which asked you about policy ineffectiveness proposition and Lucas supply curve, कैसा आंसर होना चाहिए? The first paragraph will be an introduction in which you will tell about what policy ineffectiveness proposition is. पहले इसके बारे में समझाओगे. The next part will be about the mathematical analysis, in which you will give the mathematical model, right? So that will be your second part. Okay. And the third and the last part will be where you will give conclusion based on this mathematical model, जिसमें आप बताओगे कि why output and potential output can deviate. This is due to your error term. ये error term के बारे में बताओगे, which happens due to unpredicted changes. If you give all three things, then the answer is assumed to be complete. आपको ये तीनों ही चीजों के बारे में बताना होगा. You will have to give about all three things. Am I clear? So this question came in year 2007. It is available on your portal beta. I have written all the answers. Please look into it. अब question number 2 beta, this came in 2008. एक बार ये question देखो. What do you mean by rational expectation? Contrast them with adaptive expectation. फिर से देखो, there are two parts to this question. तो पहले part में हम rational expectation को explain करेंगे. So how will we explain rational expectation? First we will write a paragraph कि rational expectation क्या करता है. So rational expectation basically it forms expectation based on available information. सारी information के basis पे वो एक expectation form करता है, right बेटा? You will write that. Then you will give a mathematical model on rational expectation. आपने एक मॉडल बना दिया कि जिसमें आपने बताया कि E of Y given all information कैसे हम इसको predict करते हैं. You will give that mathematical model. So when you will give the definition of rational expectation and the mathematical model related to rational expectation, that is your first part. ये आपका first part cover करता है उससे. What is rational expectation? You have to give this model also, beta. Then second question बोलता है contrast it with adaptive expectation. मतलब now they are expecting you that you will go ahead and you will give the difference between adaptive and rational expectation. इसमें आपको you have to tell the difference between the two. So then you have to make this table. All of you can look into your portals, check this. It is available on your portal. You have to make this table. इस table में हम क्या क्या बताएंगे? What should we be telling in the table? We should be telling the definition कि rational versus adaptive होता क्या है. We should be giving the mathematical formula. दोनों का क्या क्या mathematical analysis है. We should be giving कि दोनों में error किस वजह से होता है. Is there any systematic error or not? What is the cause of error in adaptive expectation? ये systematic error है. What is the cause of error in rational expectation? Only unexpected changes. So we will talk about that error. So when you will give these 2-3 points, that is contrasting. That is the second part to this question, where you will contrast between rational and adaptive expectation. Clear हुई बेटा ये बात? So you have to go ahead and you have to give both the parts. दोनों ही चीजें देनी जरूरी है. This question came in 2008 बेटा. अब हम अगले पार्ट पे चलते हैं. This came in 2009. इसको रीड करो. It says briefly explain theory of rational expectation. Same है. क्या क्या बताना है हमें theory of rational expectation में बेटा? We will tell about what is rational expectation and we will tell about what are the mathematical formulation of rational expectation. So you will tell about rational expectation, होता क्या है, definition, and then you will give the mathematical formula. हाँ बेटा. So you will go ahead and say कि agents make their expectation rationally, they make use of all the information. ये पूरी चीज बता दी. Now it says explain its shortcomings. So you have to give the criticism of rational expectation. तो एक बहुत important criticism. What is that बेटा? कि हम बोलते हैं whenever we are forming expectation about a variable, it is based on all information. तो हम ये assume कर रहे हैं that the person is very intelligent, कि उसको सारी information का ज्ञान होगा. He would know all the information. But is it true? Can I imagine any XYZ person to understand monetary policies, to form expectation based on all the information available in this world? No. So actually assuming that this person is very intelligent is a wrong thing to do. So ये हमारा एक बहुत important criticism है, एक shortcoming है. So then you will discuss the shortcomings बेटा. Now, हर क्वेश्चन को हमें अलग अलग आंसर करना जरूरी है. Now the third part. It says, do you think it is important over the theory of adaptive expectation? क्या आपको लगता है कि rational expectation adaptive से better है? Yes. Then you will contrast and you will explain. क्या explain करेंगे इसमें हम? We will say that in rational expectation there is no systematic error. कोई भी systematic error नहीं होता है. But in adaptive expectation, you have systematic error. अगर price continuously increase हो रहा है, so every year you will make some error. You will not be able to predict it correctly. So rational expectation is in fact an improvement over adaptive expectation. Am I clear on it, beta? So that's the third part. You will talk about how it is an improvement. Clear हुई ये बात? तो यही मैंने आपके पोर्टल पे आंसर डाला है बेटा. First, I have talked about what is rational expectation. After that, I have talked about the three characteristics of rational expectation. Then, second part था limitations. So, I have talked about the limitations of rational expectation. And at last, आपको compare करके बताना है why rational is better than adaptive. एक पैराग्राफ इस पे आएगा. That is the complete answer to this question. Let's move forward, beta. The next question that came was in year 2010. In year 2010, beta, the first part says that you are given these three equations and it says expectations are rational. Show that only unanticipated part of money supply affects the output in this model. बहुत simple है. You have to build this entire model. आपको ये पूरा का पूरा model build करना. You have to build this model. Pura mathematical analysis has to be written. At last, you remember this model का conclusion. The conclusion says that YT will be YP plus the error term. So you have that eta term coming up, right? So you will go ahead and you will mention about that error term. All of you will go ahead and do that. You will mention about the error term. And then you will say that it is the error term which causes your deviation of the actual output from the potential output. My file is so big that the system is going back in between. Okay, just give me a minute. Let me just reopen this file. Okay, beta. So this is the next question. So ye फिर से you have to go ahead and give this model completely, huh? And in this model, you will go ahead and you will talk about the same thing, that YT is equal to YP plus eta upon 1 plus B. So due to this error term, we have the existence that your output can deviate from the potential output. There can be difference between the two due to this error term. ये इसका conclusion हो जाएगा. Then it says, what do you mean by policy ineffectiveness proposition? Same, you will just repeat everything. That policy ineffectiveness proposition is due to the fact that only anticipated changes can never bring any change in the policies. अगर policy anticipated है तो output, employment कुछ भी change नहीं होगा. If your policy is unanticipated, only then you can see some changes coming in the economy. So you will again go ahead and repeat that same concept बेटा. हाँ, तो you see कि कितना repeat हो रहे. Every year you are seeing the same question in one way or the other. Okay बेटा. Now let us go ahead and let us talk about the next question. So this is completely same. And then I am going to question number that came in 2013. देखो, again it's a repetition. It says, according to policy ineffectiveness proposition, anticipatory monetary policy changes are neutral. Word change कर दिया. Now it is saying that monetary policy is neutral. एक ही बात है. That monetary policy effective नहीं है. So it is simply policy ineffectiveness proposition with respect to output level, but not with respect to price level. Proof for the economy described by the following equations. तो बेटा आंसर को ना लिखने का थोड़ा टेक्निक है. अब इन्होंने यहां पर वर्ड यूज कर दिया है न्यूट्रल. So when I will start writing my answer, I will talk about neutrality first. Are you understanding? मैं पहले न्यूट्रलिटी की बात करूंगी, फिर मैं ये इक्वेशंस को डिस्क्राइब करूंगी जैसे हमेशा से ऊपर किया है. बट हियर आई विल ऐड सम एडिशनल पार्ट विच टॉक्स अबाउट न्यूट्रलिटी. क्योंकि क्वेश्चन जैसे फ्रेम हुआ है, इट टॉक्स अबाउट द वर्ड न्यूट्रल. तो पहले मुझे न्यूट्रलिटी ऑफ मनी समझानी पड़ेगी. दैट न्यूट्रलिटी ऑफ मनी सेज व्हेनेवर मनी सप्लाई इज इंक्रीज्ड, in the long run only price increases, any real factor is unchanged. मैंने neutrality of money समझा दिया. Then I will just go back to this model and I will write this entire model again. And then I will write the conclusion of this model, that yt is equal to yp plus the error term. ये error की वजह से output and potential can deviate. This error will only occur when there is unanticipated changes. सब कुछ same. Repeat yourself. But you have to add some lines on neutrality of money. That is important. Okay, beta, come to the next question. This question came in year 2014. What is this saying? It says, explain the basic idea of adaptive expectation hypothesis. Explain this hypothesis is a base of the flawed premise of the model inconsistency. What will we do in this case? The first thing we will do is we will talk about what are adaptive expectations. तो हमने बता दिया कि adaptive expectation में whenever we set expectation about any variable, it is based on last year's value and the difference between last year value and the expected value. ये करके हमने पूरा बता दिया बेटा. We told this. Then what you will go ahead and you will do is that you will tell why it is a flawed model. क्यों है ये flawed बेटा? Because this will keep making systematic error. This is the keyword. Everybody has to use this keyword, systematic error. So it is a flawed model because it keeps making systematic error. तो ये वाला point आपको समझाना होगा. So this is what I have done here. First, you will explain what your adaptive expectation is with the help of a mathematical model. And then you will talk about flaws that it keeps making systematic error. इसमें हमेशा ये error होता रहता है. It is always based on last values. It does not consider the current information. That is your flaw. हाँ बेटा. Okay. Now this question came in year 2015. Let's repeat this out. It says, show adaptive expectation allows us to relate unobservable variable with observable variable. This is nothing but mathematical derivation of adaptive expectation. पूरा mathematical derivation बताना है हमने. So if you remember, beta, this is my adaptive expectation. है ना? From this, when we started solving this, तो end में हमारा adaptive expectation का formula कुछ ऐसा आ जाता है. lambda pt minus 1 minus lambda 1 minus lambda pt minus 2 plus lambda 1 minus lambda square pt minus 3 and so on. ये हमारा फाइनल आंसर आता है बेटा. और if I look into the right hand side, these are all observables. Last year का price, उससे last year का price, उससे last year का price and so on. So we can say now that this year's expected price is just based on all the observable values. पुराने सारे prices पे वो dependent है. So isn't this what is the question asking? That you are able to link your unobserved. अगले साल क्या price रहेगा in period T as a function of observables. You just have to give this adaptive expectation model in this question. But in 2015, another question was asked. Explain why rational expectations are on average 0. Comment on limitations of rational expectations. दो parts हैं. First, you have to talk about why the average is 0. So we know that in rational expectations, error का जो average होता है वो 0 होता है. There is one page in book which talks about this completely. क्या बोलता है वो बोलता है कि sometimes error are positive, sometimes error are negative, but on an average the errors are 0. ये वाला point आप समझा दोगे यहाँ पे why the errors are 0. Then it says talk about the limitations. बेटा हमने first question में limitations discuss की हैं. So then you will go ahead and write the criticism. So first you will explain why error is 0. Then you will explain the limitations of your rational expectation. Is that clear? Okay, beta. Come to the next question. This is asked in year 2016. What is this saying, beta? ये बोलता है, it is said that adaptive expectation allows to relate unobservable to observable. Is it true? Yes, it is true. हमने अभी ऊपर वाले क्वेश्चन में ही इसको प्रूव किया. We have proved this. It is said adaptive expectation tend to ignore useful information which leads to inefficient expectation. Do you agree? Yes. ये भी true है. Adaptive expectation information को तो consider ही नहीं करती. It is based on past values. It does not consider any new information. It is just based on past values. So is it inefficient? Yes, because it keeps making systematic error. So you will explain this. So we will agree with both the statements and we will explain them. Beta, this came in year 2016. Okay, beta, come to the next question. You are given the following model. देख लो, the repetition. This came in again 2000. I think this was in 2017. Next year. This is the same beta. I have discussed this model multiple times. The same model is asked every year. Huh? So I'm just skipping this. All of you will be aware of this now. Come to the next question. Year 2017, same model asked again, beta. See here, you are given AD, AS and money. It says derive an expression for equilibrium value. What is the policy significance of this result? So what is the policy significance? इसको अलग से लिखेंगे. The policy significance is that we have policy ineffective proposition and that we have neutrality of money. ये दोनों ही चीजें हमें समझानी पड़ेंगी policy significance में. So you see here, मैंने policy ineffectiveness proposition भी समझाई है क्योंकि ये इसकी policy significance है and I've talked about the neutrality of money also. और बाकी इस पूरे मॉडल को आपको as it is derive करना. You have to derive the model as it is. हाँ बेटा. So this is very simple. If you know this model, you can definitely get 10 to 12 marks in your final exam from this model itself. ठीक है? Okay, beta, come to the next question. This came in year 2018. It says, explain why model inconsistency problem exists in adaptive expectation. तो क्यों inconsistent है? Because आप हमेशा पुरानी values पर dependent हो. आप हमेशा systematic error कर रहे हो. So this is just giving the criticisms of adaptive expectation hypothesis. सिर्फ इसकी criticism देनी है. This came in 2018. I think this just came as a 3.5 marks question. So that is why I have written a short answer for this. Beta. Come to the next question. This came in 2019. What are the properties of rational expectation? So for a change, question was changed. अभी तक कहीं पे भी properties के बारे में नहीं पूछा गया. This was the first time in 2019 that they asked about the properties of rational expectations. Beta, what are the properties? The error term is 0. ये पहली property है. So what I have done is I have explained what is rational expectation, and then I have talked about the properties, that the error term is supposed to be 0, that there should be no systematic error, and that there should be full accuracy. इन 3 points के बारे में मैंने समझा दिया. So they are the properties. Okay, beta. Fine. Now come to the next question. This came in year 2020. What is this saying? Adaptive expectation allow observables to unobservable to observable. I have explained you this. This is a repetition. Rational expectation are not our most accurate expectation. Correct. Because there is no systematic error. हाँ बेटा, तो you will just talk about accuracy of rational expectation. Clear हो गई ये बात? So this is what will come in this answer. And that's it. So you can notice that we analyzed papers from 2007 all the way to 2021-22, and there were fixed topics that were asked. They will ask you policy ineffective proposition. They will ask you, give you those 3 equations, and they will ask you to derive the model. They will ask you characteristics of adaptive expectation hypothesis. They will ask you characteristics of rational expectation hypothesis. They will ask you why adaptive expectation hypothesis is inaccurate. And they will ask you why rational expectation hypothesis is accurate. So, इनकी characteristics, इनके criticisms, equation derivation using Lucas supply curve, and policy ineffectiveness proposition. This is all that has been repeated year after year from 2007 to 2022. I hope all of you will do answer writing practice and will solve all these 12-14 questions that I showed you today. I will do similar analysis of the paper based on other topics very soon. Okay, Peta? Okay, thank you.